It might not be in the headlines as much as Tesla, but Kia is a real electric car pioneer. Back in 2018, it launched the Kia e-Niro, and that was pretty much the first electric car with a very long range without a very high price. Since then, Kia's had a rebrand and it's launched other impressive electric cars like the EV6 and the EV9. But while the quality has still been going up, the price has as well. The EV9 starts at around £65,000. Today though, we're in Frankfurt to see Kia's newest and cheapest electric SUV. So this is the Kia EV3, and as the name suggests, this sits below the EV6 and the EV9 in Kia's lineup. And in effect, this replaces the Soul EV, which is shortly going to go off sale. Now, this isn't quite as tall as the Soul, but overall it is a little bit bigger than that car. And as a small electric SUV, it's going to be up against rivals like the Volvo EX30, the Smart #1, and also the Hyundai Kona Electric. This was first previewed by a concept car, and you can see for this production-ready version, it still has a lot of those styling features from the concept. And in effect, this does look like a shrunken EV9, doesn't it? Particularly with these vertical headlights at the front. It's a similar story inside, where you can see this layout is pretty similar to what you get in the EV9. So in fact, you've got the same screens that you get in that car, which means you've got a fully digital driver display, you've got a touchscreen infotainment system, and you've also, unfortunately, got this 5.3-inch touchscreen for the climate controls here. The most ridiculous thing about this is the fact that it is just so easy to completely block the screen entirely with the steering wheel. And if you do want to use it, then you have to kind of peer around it and then poke and prod at it from there. But at least you still can adjust the temperature and the fan speed using these dials down here on the dashboard, thankfully. On the touchscreen infotainment system, you will eventually be able to have some games and YouTube and Netflix to keep you entertained while you're charging, but that isn't available just yet on this model that we're sat in. And there are some other things to help you while you charge as well. So Kia has pointed out this movable tray thing down here, which you can slide out and rest your laptop on, so you can catch up on some emails while you charge. You've also got a relaxation seat as well. We've seen that on other Kia and Hyundai models, and it just means that this front seat can recline all the way back so you can have a nice snooze while you wait for a top-up. And if you are sat in here for some time waiting for a charge, really, this is quite a nice place to be. You've got an interesting mix of materials, and yes, a lot of them do feel quite hard, but they're still pretty good quality, and it's all nicely finished as well. And we've obviously got this attractive colour scheme on this car. Other things to point out in here: the Kia badge is going to be offset slightly to the right on the steering wheel, and that's something that you'll see on other future Kia models. There's also a QR code on the dashboard on the passenger side, and if you scan that, it will take you to some more information about the recycled materials that you find up here, so it makes it very easy to virtue signal to whoever your front passenger is. And you've got decent sized door bins. You've got this nicely padded, well-positioned armrest here. There isn't any storage under any of this, but that doesn't matter because you've still got this massive tray down here, 2 cup holders and a spot for your wireless phone charging as well. So, all in all, things up front are very impressive in the EV3. Now, what about practicality in the back? Well, apparently this has the same wheelbase as the Kia Sportage, so that's the distance between the front and rear wheels. So, that is a practical family SUV. And space in the back here, really in terms of legroom, is pretty good. You'd have to be very, very long-legged to have an issue with what's on offer, and you've got quite a natural sitting position as well, which is comfortable. Headroom is less impressive than legroom, but it's still okay unless you're an especially tall adult sat back here. It is a shame though that if you think this replaces the Soul EV, that was a brilliantly tall, boxy SUV that had loads of headroom. This isn't in that league at all. It's still fine though, and as I say, you'd have to be very tall to feel cramped or to have your head brushed up against the roof lining back here. It's also great you've got a flat floor, and if you are sat in this middle seat, it's not such a short straw because it's not raised up loads more compared to the outer 2 rear seats as it can be in some middle seats, and so the impact on headroom isn't really that bad. You do have quite a hard backrest here though, so ultimately you will be more comfortable in the outer 2 rear seats. So, overall, impressive up front, decent practicality in the rear. Things are looking good for the EV3. The EV3 has a very big boot. In total, it has 460 litres of storage back here, which is way bigger than an EX30 and a Smart #1. It's a little bit less than a Kona electric, but very similar, and really that is also a very practical small electric SUV. But it doesn't appear to be enormous like this, does it? Because you've got a bit of wheel arch encroachment over there. The floor's very high, which is good because there's no loading lip. But the reason it looks like this is because there's a height adjustable boot floor as standard. So in this highest setting, you've got a lot of underfloor storage there. Or, of course, you can remove it and lower it down to unlock really a load of extra space in the back of the EV3. There's also a handy 25-litre front boot. Now this obviously isn't a regular Type 2 charging cable, but you could probably just about squeeze one in. If you want even more space back here, you can of course fold down the rear seats. Something we should point out though is that this is a pre-production model, and you can see there's this kind of weird gap between the parcel shelf and the rear seats. But we've been told that on the production versions of the EV3, that gap won't exist. So if we take the parcel shelf out, then you can fold down the rear seats using a lever on top of the backrest. There aren't any handy levers in the boot itself to drop them from here, but still, you can see with the rear seats down and the boot floor in its lowest position, there is quite a big step up to it, but you can remove that by putting the boot floor in its highest position here. Then it lies quite flat from the floor through to those rear seats. Something to point out though is on a Kona electric, as standard, the rear seats fold 40-20-40, so all three rear seats can be folded down independently. But on the EV3, you can see they split fold 60-40. Not quite as practical, but probably not a deal breaker in this class of car. And still, overall, the EV3 does seem very practical for a small electric SUV. The EV3 will be available with two different batteries. There's going to be a standard range model with a 58.3 kilowatt-hour battery, and there'll also be a long range model with a bigger 81.4 kilowatt-hour battery. Now, official WLTP figures haven't been released just yet, but it is expected that that standard range model should have an official range around 255 miles, while the long range version should manage 350 miles, both of which are very impressive numbers indeed compared to the other electric SUVs that this is going to be up against. When it comes to charging speeds, the standard range version of this car can accept a maximum charging rate of 102 kilowatts, while the long range version of the EV3 will accept 128 kilowatts. So it means in both cars you'll get a 10 to 80% top up in around 30 minutes, which is fairly average for the class and a bit surprising because we've seen with the EV6 and with the EV9, they can accept maximum charging rates more than double what the EV3 can. But that is because they have 800 volt electric architecture, whereas this has 400 volt electric architecture. So it's a cheaper car, it can't charge as fast. It is also built on the same platform as the EV6, but it's obviously not identical because not only is the maximum charging rate different between the two cars, but also on the EV3, they will only be front-wheel drive if they have one electric motor. Whereas with the EV6, if it has a single motor, then it's rear-wheel drive. There will be a four-wheel drive version of the EV3, but it will only be available in the EV3 GT, which is going to be a hardened, performance-focused version of this car, very similar to what the EV6 GT offers. And what about the price? Well, we won't have the official pricing until closer to this car's launch later this year, but it is expected that the EV3 will have a starting price around £32,500. If it does, then the EV3 looks to have many equivalent rivals beaten for range and price. This is definitely a small electric SUV to watch out for. So that is everything we know so far about the EV3. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to see another one, then click up there. And if you want a great deal on your next car, click on that link to go to whatcar.com.